Trevor Kavanagh told me earlier about the atmosphere in the Sun newsroom.
Well, despondent, I would say, and a feeling of being under siege, I suppose.
Is it this? The front of the Financial Times today says that Rupert Murdoch is going to fly into London this week to face a rather hostile newsroom. Is that true?
Well, I think that the newsroom is full of people who feel deeply unhappy about the way that their colleagues who they've worked alongside for sometimes decades and who they respect and admire as professional, supremely professional operators have ended up being arrested, searched, put on police bail and suspended from their duties. And so there is a huge amount of anger at the fact that this has happened. And as I would point out, that not a single one of them has been charged, let alone tried or convicted.
Is there a sense do some people at the Sun feel as though the parent company has hung them out to dry a bit now?
Well, there's certainly a mood of unhappiness that the company is proudly, certain parts of the company, not News International, I hasten to add, not the newspaper side of the operation, actually boasting that they're sending information to the police which have put these people I've just described into police cells.
And forgive me, because I know the structure of the company is quite complex. When you refer to another bit of the company, what does that mean? What are you talking about?
Well, there is a parent company, News Corporation, and that has set up this management committee to look into the evidence, the documentary evidence and so on, if there is any, against any members of staff. Now, I think it's fair to say that we are not opposed to the fact that we are cooperating with the police. That's what we should be doing. And I think that if we are to get through this, we need to provide them with all the cooperation we can. I think that perhaps what would be best is if we left them to go through the evidence and find out what they can.
But that word boasting, what did you mean by that?
Well, I meant that when the arrests were made, it was made clear that they had been arrested on the basis of evidence provided by this management committee.
And are you saying that they shouldn't have provided that evidence? They should have let the police come for that evidence?
Well, I think that I don't know how it works, frankly, but it does make people in the company feel that that evidence which, as far as we know, I have to point this out, that on the basis of the evidence that's being suggested to those who have been arrested so far is pretty flimsy stuff. I can't describe it in any further detail than that, but it doesn't really stand close scrutiny, and people are wondering what on earth is happening.
So a lot of the evidence has come from the parent company now. It gets complex because I know that a lot of emails have been handed over. These are emails that were thought to be missing, and now they've been recovered, and there's something like, I think, 11 million of them. But when you say the evidence is flimsy, are you saying you more or less know exactly what evidence the police have at the moment?
No, I don't, and I'm not going to go any further into what evidence may or may not be available.
But why do you say it's flimsy then, if you don't know?
Well, because I have been told what the police have been asking about, and those you see, the people that have been arrested have been told why they've been arrested, and on the basis of that, I would say that the evidence is flimsy. What other evidence is about, I simply don't know. But my point today is that this police operation is wildly disproportionate with what might be the potential offences that may or may not have been committed.
How many police are involved in this investigation?
You have 171 officers who are involved in 3 separate operations, and this is the biggest single police operation in the history of of British policing. It is bigger than the operation on the Pan Am Lockerbie bombing. It's far, far bigger. It totally dwarfs the operation on Millie Dowler. And nobody's died, nobody's committed any hideous offences that I'm aware of, or even been suggested as having committed such offences. It does seem to me wildly disproportionate that these police officers are raiding people's homes with up to 20 officers at a time, ransacking their homes, going through their personal possessions, carting off sacks of paper. after a dawn raid. It's completely out of proportion.
Why do you think it's got here? Why do you think that the operation is now on such a scale? Is it partly about the police trying to recover their own reputation, do you think?
I suspect that's the case. They feel that they've lost a police commissioner and a deputy police commissioner, and they now want to make it abundantly clear that they aren't going to leave a single stone, floorboard, drawer, cupboard, Kellogg's cornflakes packet, or any other part of a household untouched in their hunt for evidence that may or may not exist.
Do you think that the investigation would be smaller if News International had been more cooperative with the initial phone hacking allegations?
Well, that may or may not be the case, but this is not the point. The point is that as we speak, 30 journalists have been suspended from their jobs. Their careers may have been ruined by this, and their families have been shocked and appalled by dawn raids by people who are acting, I think, in a disproportionate way. When I think a polite knock on the door, perhaps after a phone call, would have unearthed precisely the same so-called evidence. I don't know whether it's evidence or simply other pieces of paper that is in every household.
But when I say cooperative in the first place, I think that's an important point, because initially the company said it was all down to one individual, and that turned out not to be true, and they misled Parliament and they misled the public. Then they said these 11 million emails had gone missing whilst being transferred to the Middle East, and now 11 million have been recovered. But News International may have played its own part in the police investigation being of this scale.
Well, that's for you to suggest, and it may.
I don't know that, Trevor. I'm just saying.
Let me finish my sentence.
Okay.
It may well be the case. I'm not involved in any of that side of things. And what you have to remember is that if indeed we were misjudging things or getting them wrong completely, even, we have already paid a pretty heavy price for that, have we not? We have had to close one of the biggest newspapers and the oldest and one of the best newspapers in the country, and 300 excellent journalists have paid the price. Now, I think that we were talking earlier about the witch hunt, and I think that the view of those who are out to get us in this witch hunt is that nothing will satisfy them until News International is gone altogether.
Who are those people, Trevor? Who do you think is really out to get the company?
Well, I think that one person quite clearly is Tom Watson. I don't think that he would deny it, but I don't want to go into any further detail about who. I mean, you and others can easily decide who you think might fit the bill, but when you have an operation as disproportionate as this, you have to wonder what they're up to and why.
And I guess just finally, Trevor, with this story about Rupert Murdoch flying back in this week to face his hostile newsroom, do you think there is any chance at all that the Sun itself could go the way of the News of the World and get closed down?
No. I think that the Sun is a paper that if it hadn't been invented, you'd have to reinvent it. And I think that the fact is that this is a great newspaper. It's loved by millions. It's even loved occasionally by the BBC. I think that the idea of losing a paper of this sort would surely be the ultimate disproportionate act, would it not?
Mm. It's very successful as well, isn't it? It's one of the few newspapers left that makes a lot of money, I think, as well.
It is. It's successful for very good reason. It's successful because it breaks great stories. It's successful because it represents its readers' interests. It's successful because it has a vigour and a lifestyle and a life force which resonates through this country. It is the greatest newspaper in this country.
By the way, the journalists who are arrested, are they back at work?
They've been suspended.
Okay. All right, Trevor, thank you.
Indefinitely, I have to say, without any prospect of knowing when any further action is going to be taken, if any.
Is that the right call by the Sun to suspend them, or do you think that's a bit harsh?
Well, I think that I don't think there's much choice once this has happened. But, it's hard for people like me who have worked alongside people we admire and respect for, in my case, nearly 40 years with the Sun, to see them languishing at home, frustrated and unable to do anything to defend themselves, and I feel very sorry for them, and I know that it's causing them and their families a great deal of anguish.
I'm sure that's right. I didn't realise you'd been involved with the paper for 40 years. Have you ever seen the newsroom at a lower ebb than this? Have you ever been through a bigger crisis than this at the Sun?
There's never been a bigger crisis than this.